Have we seen this Bitcoin bearish fractal before? In 2021, in 2019, and are we seeing it in 2023? In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the differences and, in fact, the similarities that we're seeing across cycles when it comes to this Bitcoin bearish fractal. Subscribe to the channel, like the video if you like these videos, and let's dive right into it. So this is a bearish fractal that we're seeing on 2023. And on 2019, we saw the same exact bearish fractal. So we're seeing that this bearish fractal is forming here in 2023, and it's very similar to the one in 2019. And this similarity across 2019 and 2023 is really important. Those are two pre-halving years. But on top of that, we're also seeing this bearish fractal develop. And this bearish fractal in 2021, which played out quite nicely, we have to talk about these phases, and essentially it starts with a double top, but then this double top doesn't actually validate with a loss below this key level of support right over here. We see a relief rally to form a lower high before finally crashing below that key support right over here, and then turning that into new resistance to reject price into downside continuation. And we saw that here in 2019. It's a bit more squeezed to this fractal, but still the principles are the same. Double top, and then a fake out not to validate that double top, a relief rally to form a lower high here, and then a loss of that support, turning that support into a new resistance before downside continuation. And you can see here FOMO wicks beyond that key support level just to fake out those FOMO buyers to believe that we're actually going to reclaim this support and this overall pattern is going to be invalidated, but that FOMO wick just sees further downside going forward. And right over here, we're currently in a very similar phase to seeing the double top not actually play out. So no loss of 26k, no flipping of that old 26k support into new resistance. We actually recover, we relief rally right now, and we're currently in this relief rallying phase before we are to see a crash below 26k and then a recovery to turn 26k into a new resistance before further downside. So this fractal right over here showcases things a little bit better because we're probably currently in A to B of this bearish fractal. So A to B being essentially the analogous rebound from 26k, going into that relief rally, trying to form that new higher low relative to the lower highs that we've already been seeing earlier this year. And in fact, only a few weeks ago, we saw an upside wick into the lower high, but actually no candle bodies at this lower high, but instead upside wicks. So we're seeing sell side pressure way down on price, and in fact we're seeing an upside wick this week as well. So some quite strong rejection at lower prices compared to this upside wick already. So it's all about trying to understand where could we see this relief rally end. And I feel like this relief rally could end as high as 29k, even overextending beyond the lower high like we saw in these upside wicks. That's the best case scenario here. And of course, an invalidation of this bearish bias would be to see a weekly close beyond this lower high to turn it into a new support and then rally higher. That's going to be the invalidation, because that sort of confirmed breakout would get us back to 31k, and breaking 31k would see us go higher, of course. So those are the two invalidation criteria: breaking the lower high and turning it into a new support, to confirm a breakout into 31k, to break 31k and rally higher. Those are the invalidation criteria. But at the moment, we can't say that this bearish fractal is invalidated. In fact, we're seeing things really play out. We're still seeing this relief rally take place. It could take place to as high as 29k. It took place for the time being to around 27,150. So has this relief rally ended? That's not necessarily something that I want to rush into say that that was the immediate relief rally top. Price could still rally a little bit higher, but the main thesis here is that if we reject strongly anywhere from 27 to 29, just above 29. In fact, if we see those upside wicks, then this A to B phase will be satisfied. And if we repeat a revisit of 26K, then that's going to be a really pivotal retest, because how many times can 26K be revisited without actually breaching, especially if we're seeing lower and lower yields from that 26K region? So we're not quite seeing those lower yields just yet from 26K. It really depends on if we form a lower high, because a lower high would give us an insight into this support actually weakening. So one of the things to talk about here is that we are in a pre-halving period, and so this bearish fractal could facilitate some sort of downside in this pre-halving period, and we're approximately 210 days away from the Bitcoin halving right now. And at the same point in the cycle in 2019, prior to the 2020 Bitcoin halving, we actually saw downtrending price action, loads of relief rallies. We saw a relief rally here and then a relief rally here. Generally around this time, literally around this time, so 210 days before the halving, we saw a relief rally. And so we're around the same point in time where we also may be seeing a relief rally. And the thing about that is that in this pre-halving period, if we do see that relief rally and we see that bearish fractal play out, then there's something to be said about this higher low. And that's the fact that we saw a revisit of this higher low in this pre-halving period closer to the halving. So this was the third contact, with this one being the first, second, and third contact here. So this is the first revisit for a third touch, and we saw 1, 2 touches here, but no third touch. We haven't seen a revisit of the higher low like we saw in this cycle. And does it have to repeat? Not necessarily. But if we do see rejection around the range high resistance here, around the lower high range resistance, diagonal resistance, apologies there. If we see a resistance area reject price here, then why can't we see this? Especially if we were to lose 26K as a support and then turn it into a resistance, because that would be one of the targets to watch out for. But in saying that, we have to also understand that a revisit of the macro higher low, apologies, that still means we wouldn't drop into the range low of this overall range, because we are in a macro range low here, range high here, range low here, and range high here. So a revisit of the higher low means that we wouldn't drop into 15,500, but we could drop into 20, maybe even sub 20K. And one of the things to talk about here in terms of that reaction is that we've lost a old support on the monthly time frame, and just as we anticipated all those weeks ago, we're seeing a relief rally into 27,150, and this is for the time being rejecting price, so acting as that new resistance. Old support often acts as new resistance, so we've satisfied this portion of the pathway. Could we satisfy this next portion of the pathway to get us closer to 23K later down the line? What's interesting about that is that also we're seeing that these clusters of bull market EMAs, the purple 50-week EMA and the green 21-week EMA, this cluster of moving averages, this bull market support band, that's actually a very confluent region with this 27,150 level. So confluent resistance is residing there. And only a few days ago, I spoke about how rejecting at this bull market cluster of EMAs could see us drop in to the 26K region once again. So Bitcoin has already seen an upside wick beyond this bull market support band. So we're also seeing a rejection around this region, which is also confluent with the monthly level of 27,150. So if we continue to see this rejection here, we could actually drop into 26K. And so that also plays into that fractal. Is this still A to B, or are we going to actually see C to D where we lose this 26K region? That all really does depend. This also is quite interesting to see be very confluent with the 4-year cycle, because the 4-year cycle assumes that we could see early 2024 some sort of 20k or even sub 20k level for Bitcoin. So if you want to learn more about the 4-year cycle, check it out in the top right hand corner, and I'll speak to you in that one.